Got a special guest, the NHL expert over here. We got PC Lead, Walid, in the house tonight. What's going on, brother?
My man, just taking a little break from playing Madden '07, as I was telling you. I've been firing that up lately and going back in time. But yeah, we got a single game slate here, a game that it's pretty boring, I'll be honest, right? Two non-playoff teams that have struggled throughout the season dealing with injuries. But for what it's worth, there are guys out here that can light the score sheet up.
Yeah, and it's definitely a little weird with such a heavy favorite in a single game slate. Definitely makes it a little bit different. Team
Mhm.
total's not that high; it's about 6. Um, so go ahead. Do you want to start on FanDuel
Yeah,
tonight?
well, let's. I think it makes sense to kind of take an overarching kind of approach here.
Okay.
Obviously, DraftKings and FanDuel, different platforms to play on, different rules, scoring, and also like roster construction. For starters, the biggest difference. DraftKings, you pick 5 players, position doesn't matter. Goaltenders are included as
Yeah.
well. Whereas
6 players actually.
6 players,
Yeah.
sorry.
No
Um,
worries.
whereas FanDuel, there is a little more structure. You have to roster 2 defensemen,
Hmm.
no goaltenders whatsoever, and you do have a MVP spot that multiplies that player's output by 1.5. So salaries are different. Those that
So
follow
different. Yeah.
are kind of NHL plug and have access to the model. That DraftKings more frequently adjusts for matchups, whereas FanDuel, they're a lot slower to adjust. So what can happen from time to time is you get certain players that, young players that start cheap as chips, but get elevated to a top 6 role. And then, 2, 3 weeks later, you're finding that, hey, these guys are getting like 17, 18 minutes a night
Hmm.
playing with the best players, and they're just ridiculously underpriced. Whereas DraftKings, they take note of that real quick. So, um, what that does is it just creates price discrepancies, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And
And
you and I were going through that, listing out the FanDuel and DraftKings. FanDuel is just the salaries are so, I don't want to say off because that might be the wrong word, but just so
I think
different
so.
compared to
No,
DraftKings.
they're off, man. I mean, it's just a matter of like not updating them as often, and things change, right? Like
Absolutely.
when you have in hockey, like you can have, and there's outside the superstars, there's a lot of young players that their value will drastically shift depending on the role they have that night. Like the
Hmm.
difference, and what happens is you have coaches punishing young players for, making a turnover in their zone, and
Yeah.
then they promoted to the third or fourth line, which often, it's not going to see more than 10, 12 minutes. And going to have a lot of like bad, like, situations where they're like taking defensive zone draws and
Hmm.
not on the power play. So like, yeah, that can really affect a lot of kind of young players on the other end. I mean, yeah, just kind of like we said, right? As we went through the prices, there were things that were like, oh wow, okay, this is a crazy difference.
Yeah. I was like, okay, that's way off. Um, now, you're pretty knowledgeable. I'm not going to lie. I don't know shit about NHL. I can name like 5 players. Um, so I was going through the model and just trying to take a look. How would you start out using the model? And I'll pull it up here um, for single game. If we want to go ahead and get Anaheim
For
and
sure.
Ottawa, do you look for the pretty much the same things with single game compared to the full slate? Like, would you start out with centers or wingmen?
So with
Yeah,
like with yeah, so good question, because with FanDuel, like all forwards are the same, right? Center, winger, they don't care. So it's just like
yeah,
a forward position. And if you do use a defenseman in your MVP spot, you still have to use 2 other defensemen, right? So
that's
now
wild.
and that's okay. Like there are definitely effective strategies, but really the first thing I do is figure out where I can save some money, because what
Okay.
happens with FanDuel, you have 9.1K per position, right? Just like a
Yeah.
little under that. And on DraftKings, it's about 8.3K.
Yeah.
And then you look at it, like if we look at FanDuel, right?
Hmm.
You have to average 9K, but tonight there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. You have 12 players that are, you know, above that line. So it's like, it's tough. I mean,
Yeah.
going to more times than not, if you want to pay up for someone, punt a position or two. So really the first thing I look at is, where can I buy myself some salary, right? Like a lot of times it's with the defenseman that gets a lot of minutes, has a like top four defenseman role.
Okay.
I can count on seeing 20 shots. I'm sorry, 20 minutes of ice time. I can count on them to even get a shot or two on net and block a shot. And the hope there is like, hey, look, they'll probably 90% of the time not do much for you, maybe get a few points, but they'll help you save some coin, because it's just the only way to be able to build a lineup. Like if you're going to pay up for, like, let's say Mark Stone, who's I think the most expensive on FanDuel at 13K, and then let's say either Getzlav or Raquel from the Ducks, who are at 11.5K. Now all of a sudden, I mean, that's two positions there, right? And
Yeah.
you're averaging around 12K. And the bottom price is $6,000. And some of these guys for 6K, you don't want to touch with a 10-foot pole. I mean, unless you're okay just punting a position altogether, which
Yeah.
not the worst thing, but it starts with value in a way, kind of working backwards.
Okay. Now, I know one of the things we mentioned also with NHL is the importance of stacking and having correlation. Do you think we take the same approach here?
It's interesting, right? Because you focus on one game, and in
Yeah.
that game, so many different things can happen. Like the range of outcomes. Like for instance, what can happen is tonight the Ducks and um, the Senators. Like right now, I think that the implied total is just over 6 goals, right?
Yeah. 6 goals. Yeah.
Right. Um, this game could end up having 2 goals, right? Not saying
Exactly.
that it's going to happen, but the game could end up being 2-0, and all of a sudden, um, literally the difference here can be rostering a goalie for DraftKings that got you a shutout, or on FanDuel having the two players that scored, and those two
Yeah.
players that scored goals might not have anything to do with one another, right? It could be a defenseman for Anaheim and Getzlav or Raquel or Andrej Kosh. Like, so it's just something to keep in mind. It's not as important, I think, to stack.
Okay.
Um, Especially now, it's certainly a valid strategy, right? Like,
Hmm.
and I'm not saying, and especially if you're looking at like a higher risk contest, there's a trade off, right? With stacking players, what happens is, for each goal a player scores, it's less likely another player on their line is scoring a goal,
Okay.
but it's more likely that they're getting an assist.
Hmm.
So it really, really just depends the type of contest. Like if you're playing in a 10, 20, even 100 player league, you don't have to beat that many people.
Yeah.
Uh, if you're playing in a larger GPP, then all of a sudden, you want to create as different of a lineup, maybe not even use something we talked about and Brian talks about in football, not even using all of your salary, right?
Yeah. Especially for single game. Yeah.
But yeah, no, to your point, like, yeah, I really want to start with the value, and it's tough on a slate like this.
Yeah.
So let's kind of work backwards, right?
Okay.
Um, So you look at a handful, and I mean, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 guys at $6,000, right? On FanDuel, that's bottom priced.
Yeah.
Um, 5 of which are defensemen, right? I don't want anything to do with any of these forwards, whether it's Kiefer Sherwood, Nick Paul, and they might score a goal and make me look dumb tonight, but I mean, when you get guys that are getting 8, 9 minutes of ice time, a lot of like, defensive zone type of situations.
Yeah.
Um, I want to steer clear. I'd rather use that money on a defenseman who's going to get more minutes, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you can pay $6K for someone, a fourth line forward who's going to get 10 minutes, or you can pay $6K for a second or third pairing defenseman who's going to get maybe 16, maybe even 20 minutes in a certain
Yeah.
situation.
Absolutely.
So if you follow that logic, it's like, okay, let's save some money with the defenseman, right? Give us a little breathing room. So let's check out like Josh Manson, for instance, right?
Okay.
He
So just a quick little pivot. Since we can't do we can't create a lineup first on FanDuel like we do DraftKings, I'm just gonna act like I'm doing a lineup for this satellite to the super crossbar.
okay.
If we end up doing it, then we end up doing it. But just to get some just see how we
Mm-hmm.
can construct a lineup.
For sure. And I mean, NHL Roto Grinders, if you go on their website, rotogrinders.com/lineup/NHL, they don't always update it like, by the hour even.
Mm-hmm.
But it is a great way to kind of get everything in front of you. They kind of put together, hey, these are the lines we're anticipating. And then you can kind of click on different players and get an idea of their ice time, right? Because
Okay.
there are two things that we really value when we're trying to make it as simple as possible. Number one is the ice time, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
how often are you going to be on the ice? Like you look at take someone like I said, Josh Manson. He's actually $3,600 on FanDuel for the main slate, which is 3,500 is the bottom price for defensemen.
Yeah.
And he's 6,000, or I'm sorry, he's 6,500 on the single game slate, just $500 over the bottom line.
So
But
basically a bottom line person.
you're right, basically bottom line. But if you look at, I mean, he's someone that he's gotten 20 minutes literally every game, like, and they just got obviously Cam Fowler returning from an injury who he plays with. That should help him if anything. Gives
Okay.
someone that can also move the puck and create offense with him. But like, let's look at the last 3 games, right? 3 shots on goal, 1 shot on goal, 3 shots on goal. 21 minutes, 22 minutes, 25 minutes, right? There is some floor with that. He will block a shot here, get a shot or two on net, and ultimately the upside here is hopefully he gets an assist, right? Hopefully he can get you. I mean, a goal is just unreal. Like, if you get a goal, you're hitting the lotto there.
Yeah, look, he
Um,
hasn't scored a goal in basically forever. But
right.
looking at his game log, like you said, he's always going to get you that block, getting some ice time, significant amount of
Mm-hmm.
ice time, especially for someone at 6,500. That definitely looks pretty tempting. I'm looking at here in the Occupy model. Um, he's fourth overall across the single game slate. That's pretty good.
Right. No, for sure. And once again, it's like it's it's not intuitive or fun to start building your lineup with a player like that because
Yeah.
it's like yuck, right? Like I want to start with the MVP, but you're going to, like I said, there's just the average salary is a little over 9,000, and with all the guys that are over 9,000, like I mean, we're talking about guys like look at Chris Tierney, right? He's like, or Adam Henrique. These are like third line centers um that are 9.5K. If you look at their regular, like if you look at their main slate values, like these are guys that are 4.5K or
Wow.
4.4K, right? Like super cheap, like in a way for that center position, like
Hmm.
a punt play for the main slate.
Yeah.
But for a single game slate, like that's above the average that you can spend. You know what I mean? Where,
Absolutely.
if I'm not mistaken, I think like if you do a main slate lineup with your $55,000 to spend with on FanDuel, you average to about like a little over 6K, right?
Hmm.
So these guys are like $1,500 cheaper than your average. In other words, by rostering them, you're giving yourself even more than that 6K for other positions.
That's true. Yeah.
But in this situation, they're actually by rostering
It's
them,
the
not saying
complete
they're not going to
opposite.
play.
Yeah.
So the pricing thing is definitely, it's just different. It's a totally different game. Now, looking at Cam Fowler as we're kind of in that range of cheap defensemen, he's a tier above as far as his price, right? 7.5K. Much more expensive on DraftKings. What do you know, right? He's what, 9.8K? That's because DraftKings, they're sharper. I mean, they just are with how they set their prices. Cam Fowler, he's, top unit power play guy. Really someone that was up until like the last 2 months when he's been out with injury, and Hampus Lindholm has really launched himself into kind of that 25-minute night role. He was their number one guy, and he had one game back, I think his first game back, right? Let's see. Yep. After missing almost 2 months,
Wow.
didn't register a point, but 22 minutes of ice time, right? Was on that second pairing. Was on that second pairing with Manson. Shows that, hey, look, he was rusty from what I read. Right, he missed 23 games, whether it's knee injury, facial fractures, and in his case, but clearly he's going to be right back in that role, right?
Mm-hmm.
And on FanDuel, I'm looking at it and saying, 7.5K, once again, a little under that average. Him and Manson skate together. So on one end, it's interesting. You're kind of elevating your floor because chances are both guys aren't going to score, but maybe one of them will, right? Like, especially like playing on the same line, but you're also going to improve your upside if and they're gonna be on the ice 20 minutes together, right? So if
Absolutely.
one of them scores, the other gets an assist. Maybe both of them get an assist. Very feasible outcome. But if you try that, and let's just to kind of experiment, plug
Yeah.
both of those guys in, and then just see what it does to the remaining salary.
All right. Yeah. Absolutely. Let's see.
So yeah, let's put Fowler in the defensive slot.
Yeah. FanDuel's being stupid. They want you to. It almost like forces you to fill in the captain spot first.
Right. Which once again counterintuitive, right? So here that's ridiculous. I think it's weird on the phone. It's a little click defense and then try it now.
Fucking FanDuel, I swear.
Right. Weird. Okay. I don't know what to say. Can you try clicking D and add player?
Yeah.
If you go to click that and then see if that works.
No, why would it?
Right, why wouldn't it? It's ridiculous. Should work. Nope. Okay. That's weird. On the phone, it actually works. I don't know why it's happening right now like that, but we'll just kind of bookmark
Yeah.
that. Well, how did you get Manson to?
That was so strange. So I clicked defense first, and it worked for him. Now it seems like everything's forwarding to the captain.
So weird. Just put in a filler for captain quick.
Yeah.
Just anyone.
Yeah.
Yeah. Someone cheap, preferably, just to kind of. Yeah. Could be at like a bottom price guy. We're not going to use him, but just.
I'll put this guy. Josh Mahura, whoever that is.
And we're not going to use him there,
Yeah.
obviously, for those watching. But and I think he's even like a healthy scratch. But yeah, now let's put in Fowler there.
Yeah. Now we can take him. Now we can take out the captain. Now we're looking good. Now we got that $10,200 average per player. That definitely opens up a lot of opportunities.
Absolutely, but kind of once again working backwards. We're still at the point where, and to be honest, I'm playing this slate. I don't think I'm going to put both Manson and Fowler. I think I'm actually going to pay up for Hampus Lindholm, right? But with that said, this is a strategy you could still utilize. And in this case, like given all the expensive forwards available here, it might be the smarter route. So another guy we can feel good about, like, and there aren't many guys we can feel good about their quote unquote price, but um, you take a look at Brady Kachuk, right? Rookie there. He's shown massive upside, many points this year. I mean, he's only 19 years old, but in like 32 games he's played, 10 goals, 10 assists. If you, I mean, he missed some time earlier in the season with injury, but yeah, like let's look at his profile and his shots and his volume have been a little down recently. But if you scroll back, and Matt Duchene is actually out of the lineup today for Ottawa, which is I think he's having like a kid
Oh,
expected or due, so he's missing the road trip. Um, but anyway, that should help Brady Kachuk slightly probably get a little more ice time. I mean,
okay.
um, looking at, between Kachuk and Mark Stone, who's the most expensive player, like, top unit power play right now. We know Brady Kachuk is going to get those minutes. Like, he should see more than 15 minutes tonight,
Okay.
right? He should have a chance. And let's pull up his game log again. Let's
Yeah.
just kind of go through it. I mean, you can see his average, right? 10.9 points. And compared to the guys around, um, pretty obvious, right? He's head and shoulders. So, like I said, lately he hasn't same beast, but if you go down, you see a lot of 3-shot goals. Keep on scrolling a little down. 7-shot games, right? He obviously knows how to score. He's a kind of shot first type of dude. This is exactly the type of guy we want to plug in to save money.
Mm-hmm.
More like, which is weird because like the Ducks and the Senators, not the best matchup, not exactly a like Western Conference like finals preview. Or, I'm sorry, like Stanley Cup finals preview. Um, but there are very like top heavy priced players here. And having someone like Kachuk, it's just gonna save you some coins. So plug him in right there.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. Perfect. And I saw in his game log he had that sick like week. He had like 25 points, 20 points,
Oh
40 points.
yeah.
I'm like, wow, who's killing it?
No, he's a big time player. I mean, yeah, I think he's a second pick overall, a third pick of the draft. So obviously, comes in with talent, lineage, all that. Like this is a
Yeah.
guy who had, let's see, this season 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So he's a rookie in 30 games. He's already had 5 multi-point games,
Wow.
right? Which is what you want. Like you
Yeah.
want a guy in this spot that even if he only sees 14 or 15 minutes of ice time, can get you 2 goals on 5 shots, right?
Yeah.
Um, now let's click around and just to kind of compare, relatively speaking, like compare him to Mikhail Bodker or even like Ryan Kessler, right? Like let's pull up their game logs and similar price guys, right? Like right in that same range.
So
And
for how do you say his
yeah,
name? Bodker.
Bodker, I believe, right? I
Bodker.
think he's on San Jose. It was a weird trade this offseason, but I mean, he's like someone that can go 3 games without recording a shot on net,
Yeah.
right?
And then
And
he blows up and gets like a goal, an assist for 20. He gets 25 points.
right, and but like if you look, like if you, and I'll pull up his like career stats. I mean, he's a 29-year-old. He's been in the NHL for what, almost I think yeah, a decade now, right?
Wow.
He's never had a 20-goal season, right? Something that Brady Kachuk will have. Like if
Mm-hmm.
he might even have one, he should have one this year, right? Um, it's just apples and oranges as far as the upside and
Yeah.
also the floor, right? So, um, I mean, it's tough justifying paying like it's not worth saving money on someone that's not going to give you any upside unless they're a defenseman, in my opinion, when it comes to the full game
Yeah.
slates.
Yeah. That's definitely a good thought process there.
So now we're kind of zeroing in and look at, and even like let's pull up Ryan Kessler, who could be, he still has upside. Like I mean, he plays on the top unit power play. he's like, going to get 15 plus minutes, and the shot volume is there for a guy like this. So not to kind of drag him through the mud. I think his best days are way behind him, but like and you can see he had 4 or 5 shot games. The big thing here for me is that he's on the top unit power play, which at home tonight against Anders Nilsson and the Senators, who allow more goals and more shots than any team in the league, right? Like defensively atrocious against their backup goalie here. It's one of these things where, hey, for his price, he can really hit value. He doesn't need to score a goal. He literally can, like if Kessler can get an assist or
bunch of shots,
like, so just curious. We're not going to stick with this, but I want to see if we plug him in right now, where that leaves us.
Yeah, so we plug him in, not in the fucking captain spot.
Definitely not in the captain spot. Because and this applies to really anything. The captain spot you want to save, period, for the players that you think have the highest upside. With single game NHL slates, there's so much volatility, right? Like let's compare to the NBA for a second. If you're playing like a single slate, like let's take the Seahawks Cowboys game, where pretty much I think everyone that played the single slate had Zeke in their captain spot, right?
Yeah, he was pretty much like 90% owned in that shit.
Right, and it makes sense. Whereas in NHL, the volatility is just like way higher.
Yeah,
it just is. Like someone like that top caliber player can literally get you a goose egg because they had 0 shots on goal that game. It just it happens. But in this sort of situation here, right? Like now we've set ourselves up to pay up for some guys.
Exactly.
Mark Stone will be most likely the most popular option, I think.
Okay.
It's just the bias of people playing. You open this thing, right? Like
you
like,
see him first. Oh, he's 13,000. He's so expensive. I gotta play him.
Average most points. Right? Like he's probably, and look at his minutes. I mean, they utilize him heavily. Like he's someone that like he should probably tonight see 20 minutes of ice time, I imagine.
Yeah, he's getting like 20, 25 minutes of ice time every game.
And the shot, I mean, when is the last time he's had no shots on goal? Maybe like once in the last, 20, 25 games. So, and then you look at those, like he's had multi-point games pretty often.
Yeah, he's straight crushing it.
Right. So in this case, if I'm playing a higher risk contest, you don't necessarily have to play him in this spot. You don't even necessarily have to play him at all in a higher risk contest, right? So take this satellite, for instance, right? You have 3 tickets. It's not really a higher risk contest because if you finish 3rd out of 12 here, you win a ticket, right? So maybe a little different. And then if you were like in a 100-player contest, so but you don't really have to worry about differentiating. But like plug in Mark Stone just at the captain spot.
Okay. And that leaves us 12-5 for the last player.
And now we can work backwards, right? So honestly, I want exposure to someone on Anaheim's top line, whether it's Raquel or Getzlav. Now Raquel is returning from an injury. I think he's a decision. I don't know if we have a full update. You want to click his little icon thing?
Yeah, what does that D2D mean? Like
day to day,
down to dance.
Yeah, down to dance, right? He will be down to dance tonight. I think he's going to play. But hey, this is something that once again we talk about it often. Like plays into the bias. He's been hurt. He has that label, right? Game time decision. It's something that can keep people off him on the MVP spot. But look, this is a 25-year-old that has had 30 goal seasons. In fact, he's coming off 2 straight, and he's ascending. I mean, he's struggled the whole Ducks team has struggled this year to score goals and to even get the puck on net. But he's their best bet. Like if this year he only has 5 goals in 30 games, but last 2 seasons 30 plus goals. The big reason here is just he's been a little unlucky.
Okay.
Shot percentage 5.7. That means he's scored on 5.7% of his shots.
It seems pretty low, right?
Right. His career average is 12.7, right?
Wow.
So he's due for a regression. I'm not saying it's going to happen tonight, but if he keeps shooting at the volume he's shooting, he's not going to continue scoring 1 goal every 6-7 games. It should pick up a little. But in higher risk contests, not a lot of people are going to have him in that MVP spot. Now, let's plug him in right here just to kind of see and let's move Stone, right? And look, we can work 2 ways around it. And this is what's so weird about it. Like both of these lines can be good for higher risk contests, but also cash games, right? Because at the end of the day, like one game is so volatile. For cash games, you definitely want to diversify. You're not going to stack across the board for cash games.
Yeah, that makes sense.
You want to get right, like you want to try and get exposure to different lines, different teams. You don't want to go too heavily or tilt one way. But for high risk contests, you can stack, but you can also diversify because once again, let's say this is a game where the score is 2-1 or 3-1, but Raquel has 2 goals for Anaheim. Kessler has the other goal, right? They don't correlate. They're not on the same even strength line, but the way the dominoes fell, not many people are going to have those guys. So
absolutely,
you can definitely keep your mind open in higher risk contests. Same goes for the regular main slates. You don't have to always stack 3-4 guys. Like you don't have to build your lineup like that. You can build a lineup stacking 3 guys and then sprinkling in a bunch of wingers that you feel like are going to see the ice a lot, get key opportunities, whether it's power play, top line, top 6 sort of opportunities. And if you're playing a higher risk contest, like maybe you pick to end up scoring 2-3 goals each, and then no one else is going to have that lineup. Where if you stack a team across the board, and I know I'm talking about the main slates now, but if you stack a team across the board, you might find, hey, they score 3 goals, but you get 2 goals and 2 assists, and that's good. But if you're looking to get that top 1% of prizes, even if a player hits value, like an assist and 1 shot on goal is probably not going to help you win a high risk contest.
Yeah, it's not going to justify. You're not going to win a GPP. You're not going to be winning 50,000.
Right.
With that,
like our guy did, like our guy Jack. But yeah. So I mean, the way I'd go with it. So let's take out Raquel again for a second, and let's take out Kessler.
Okay. And Brian also makes a good point here in the Twitch chat. It says you can also play cash lineups in high risk too, because most people don't know what the fuck they're doing.
Absolutely. No, and I mean, when you're building a cash game, what's the philosophy? Number 1, you want guys that are on the ice a lot, right?
Yeah.
You don't want to play a guy in your cash game lineup that's going to get 10, 12, 13 minutes. You want guys that are going to get 16 plus that are on the first or second line or third line if the team like rolls them out evenly, like Ottawa will tonight, like Zingle and I think Bobby Ryan are on their third line, and they'll probably see more. That is probably the real second line for them tonight, right?
Okay.
The way it breaks down, but yeah, no, Brian is dead on. Like you really don't need you can use your cash lineup because you're looking at guys that get on the ice a lot, and then guys that get a lot of shot attempts, high danger opportunities. Those are guys that are key for your cash games. Finding value in that, like paying, 4,000 or 5,000 for guys that can score multi goals. That's what we're going for. Some guys are super expensive. I'm thinking like the Nick Backstroms and the Blake Wheelers of the world, who are world-class hockey players, absolutely, without a doubt, like Olympic level, like make all the difference in the world for their team.
Yeah.
But for fantasy purposes, aren't really like they're pass first guys. Like if you look at their careers, you'll see many, 60, 70 assist seasons, but like no 30 plus goal seasons. And like what they cost per the upside they give you, you could save that money and then spend up on someone else that can actually, like a winger that can actually that will shoot the puck 5-6 times on any given night.
Definitely, yeah. How are you so knowledgeable in NHL? By the way, I have to ask because you just like spit players out knowledge, and I'm just like, okay.
It's just fandom, right? It's
Yeah,
not that like hard when you follow it and
that's
like
true. Yeah.
upside, but yeah, it's fun. That's the bottom line. Like it's not like doing homework for me. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
no different than
I am
you.
starting to appeal to NHL. It actually is a fun sport once you know kind of what's going on, how to follow it.
Absolutely.
Winning money also helps out too with it.
Well, I think yeah, anyone that is a casual hockey fan, like they love playoff hockey, right? They
Hmm.
love the intensity that it's a crazy game. Like momentum shifts, right? It's never over till it's over. It's physical, fast pace, extreme skill on display. It's not a game that has 100 whistles every 5 minutes, right? So naturally, it's fun and entertaining, and then it's like going through a renaissance of analytics and just data because baseball had that in the 90s. Football kind of went through it, the NBA. Hockey is finally getting there, and I think more, and I hope it continues to go this way with I think FanDuel partnered with the NHL.
Yeah,
Just because like hockey fans are diehard fans, just getting them exposed to, hey, like here's another way to enjoy it, right?
exactly.
It's fun, it's challenging. It forces you to think about what's actually going on the ice, how coaches are deploying players. But the names, it's hard. Like if you don't know, like Brian, for instance, last year was like his first year playing, and he won like 10 grand, right, on a GPP. He couldn't tell you going into last year like
Who they were.
5 hockey player names. But
Yeah, it's crazy.
now that he's been actively playing and now 2 years, like he knows a lot now.
Yeah,
He knows. Yeah, he's asking me like, "Yo, what the hell are they doing with it? Like, why is he only getting 10 minutes of ice time? Like when he's scoring every every game?" And I'm like, "Yeah, same thing, just like the NFL, just like coaches leave you scratching their heads, right? Like they
absolutely.
trade skill for grit and like upside for like I'd rather play someone who I know will suck versus someone who could suck but could also be great."
Dude, I totally agree with you on that one. Yeah. So I'm
Um,
taking a look here real quick back to the lineup because I know we went on a little tangent there. Um, I know we took out Mark Stone as the captain. Do you think we switch him back and put him back in as captain?
You can, right? And it just depends on the contest. So on a game like this, like he doesn't need to score a goal for you to justify rostering him.
Hmm.
I mean, Ottawa has an implied total of 2 goals tonight.
That's
Um,
ridiculous.
right, but he could be the one that gets one or two of them. And if you supplement 5 shots, all of a sudden it's totally fine. But at his price, it kind of like he kind of forces you to make some tougher decisions. He's told like he's very much cool to be the MVP. A lot of people will have that, but let's take him out for a second, right?
Okay.
Let's build a lineup where we get in, let's say Ryan Getzlaff, right?
Who? Ryan who?
Getzlaff. So he should be at 11. I think
Okay,
11.
right there. I saw Ryan Zingle and I was like, that's not how you say gets laughed.
Yeah, close, right?
It's just a little bit.
um, so let's see. I mean, what it does with our cap, right? So now
Yes.
it's like So it's like, okay, you know what? And that he's $1,500 cheaper than Stone. So
Mhm.
scroll down a little. Let's see, who do we have? I need to just pull up my fan. Chat thing is slightly blocking me.
Do you think we can use the model by any chance? I know it doesn't have the single
Yeah,
game
no,
pricing in there.
absolutely. No, sorry. We should. So, like for instance, Ryan Getzlav, and we should be using the model
Yeah.
because like it's a great way to cross compare players. So Getzlav, he's the highest rated center, right? Hands down across both teams, and it's no surprise he's also the most expensive.
Mhm.
But we don't care about centers. We care about forwards, right? We can
Yeah.
bunch them in together. But there's only three forwards in this game that are rated above 7, and that's Getzlav, Andre Kosh, and Raquel. So
Mhm.
um, you look at Mark Stone, he has a 6.89. And once again, this factors in price, and the model is going to be based off implied Vegas total, right? It's a little different. Um, Unlike when we use the model for the single game slate in the NFL, where the prices are fully accounted for.
Yeah.
Um, but it helps. You can use the model to compare players relative to positions. Like you can compare centers to wingers, right?
Yeah. Definitely.
The only catch there is the price is going to be based off what they are on the main slate.
Yeah, and that's the only downfall. And that's something that we're working on. Hope to have it up pretty soon. Um, where we want to kind of incorporate the single game because a lot of people love this single game stuff.
It's fun. It is. Like it's a good way to get into it, right? Like it's not overwhelming. You don't have to worry about like 3, 4, 8, 10 games.
Exactly.
Um,
Or like one of the members messaged me on Twitter and said, "Hey, I'm going to I forget what game it was. I think it was the Caps game actually." And he's like, "Yeah, I want to do a lineup for the single game so I can root for the players while I'm there." I'm like,
Fun,
"Yeah,
yeah.
that
Says you
right
should.
there is awesome." Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, um, people are changing the way they're watching sports, man. But yeah, let's go back to the lineup quick. And
Yeah.
I don't want to like kind of mislead people. Like there are just many ways you can go about it. It depends on the contest you're playing. And
Absolutely.
even like with cash games, like there isn't like an optimal cash game lineup. Like simply because it's like it comes down to what you're paying per dollar, and if
Especially with a
like,
sport as volatile as NHL.
it's just so volatile. Exactly. So for a high risk contest, I like stacking Getzlav with Raquel because I know they share even strength time and power play time. That's they're facing the worst defense in the league. They're at
Hmm.
home. They're like not only the worst defense, like a banged up team altogether, backup goalie. So for me, if I could get that stack in right there, all of a sudden it's like, okay, well now I have some correlation. I have Kachuk on the other end who could gives me goal scoring upside, but doesn't necessarily cripple my price.
Yeah.
And now I have 10K to work with for my last spot, which is pretty solid.
That's a lot, yeah. And I'm just trying to find some of these people in the model. And we have
Mm-hmm.
Jacob Silverberg. Is that how you say his
Mm-hmm.
name? He's close to
Correct.
7 in the model. Um,
Yeah, he's solid play. I mean, a little bit unlucky, I think, this season, but hey, 10 goals so far. I mean, he's a guy that's like he plays with Ryan Kessler. He's the guy that dominates the shots on that line, right? He's going to get 3 shots tonight. Like he's going to see 15, 16 minutes, 3 shots. He could pot one in the net, and then all of a sudden, like you're looking at a lineup that's extremely different, right? Because
yeah. Do you like him? Putting him in as the final spot?
I like him. I like this lineup in a higher risk contest, actually,
Hmm.
um, simply because of how like tilted it is. Because I mean, with between gets like let's say Anaheim loses this game,
Yeah.
like this lineup is probably going to be trash, right? Like if if they lose 2-1 or 3-1 or who knows, right?
Yeah.
Um, I like diversifying. I never like this sort of 5-1 breakdown in a cash game, even on a slate where a team is this heavily favored. Um, it's just a little too risky, but this has the makings of it. So now what I would do is maybe move in, like, between Getzlaff and Raquel, maybe pay up for Stone with one and then pay down for someone else, right? And now you have two players on Ottawa, and that's more than fine. Like 2, 3 players, that's kind of what I look for. Like it's just tough for me to only
Yeah.
play one player in a low risk contest from one team.
So let's take. So do you want to take a chance? Do you want to keep the lineup as it is with this contest?
So I would like, yeah, this is the type of lineup. Like if I'm putting this lineup on here, right, I'm pretty much taking what Vegas is giving me, which
Yeah.
is heavily home favored against pretty much, like I said, the worst defense. Now Anaheim, they have the problems of their own. Like they can't seem to create high danger opportunities often, but this is a lineup right there. Like you could very well, if Anaheim scores 4 goals, right, and the score is 4-2, like which is what Vegas is projecting, maybe Getzlav and Raquel combine for 2, assist each other, and then
we're looking at a pretty good floor right there.
Right, and then between Manson and Fowler, they do enough, and Silverberg to, let's say you get 1 goal between those guys and an assist or 2, and then all of a sudden, like this lineup is going to be up there with Brady Tkachuk, who should be pretty popular, as well. So this is a fair lineup in a contest like this. It's a fair lineup, right? Because it's not really a cash game lineup, but you do need to finish top 3 out of 12. It's 25%. You need to be, and there'll probably be overlay in this contest.
Probably,
Anyway,
yeah. It wouldn't surprise me.
yeah. So no, this is a totally fine higher risk kind of contest. But you can also mix it up, and like I said, get rid of Silverberg, try and find someone cheap. Then you pay up for Mark Stone. Doesn't have to be at the MVP spot, right? Another thing is, yeah, like just because Mark Stone is in your lineup doesn't mean he has to be in your MVP spot.
Exactly, yeah. Especially on FanDuel where the price is the same for the captain as well as the other players.
Mm-hmm. Same price for sure. So, and many ways to go about it, but like hopefully, and we're just kind of chatting and bouncing ideas here, but
Which is what you should do when making a lineup, especially for single game, because like you said, there's so many different outcomes that a single game can have, especially in
right.
a sport as volatile as NHL. You definitely want to kind of cover all your bases and just go overlook, say, okay, well, if this happens, what happens? Let's tell a story. What about this happened? What does
Yeah.
Vegas think the story's going to be?
So let's kind of tilt it back. Let's go back and let's try and make a more what I'd have like as cash game lineup here.
Okay. Since we're a little pressed on time, do you want to do the cash contest on DraftKings?
Yeah, let's hop on in there.
Cool.
See how the games are going tonight. We had a little 3-game slate, I think. Yeah. Oh.
Wrong thing.
It's volatility is what makes this so fun, right? Like literally the winner of someone's gonna win tonight that is putting a lineup with no correlation. Like very well could be
All right,
the
so we
case.
got the Ottawa Anaheim game up. And I'm just going to shit on FanDuel for 30 seconds. It's bullshit that they only have this one game for the single game. And DraftKings has this plus other pricing and more contests.
Yeah.
Now, for a cash lineup, do you think of something more of like a double up?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So I'm not sure what if you do this. I know we kind of try and preach a lot. Is we type to look at experience badges people in the lobby. I'm just taking a look here and we see a bunch of experience badges. That's one that I'm gonna kind of get away from.
Mm-hmm.
Let's take a look here. A lot of sharp people tonight playing.
Oh yeah.
not playing this $5,300 uh 50-50.
Sure.
Look at that. All right, so the $5 one I saw. Let's shoot for this one.
Awesome. And quickly, like just some resources I love you outside of the model. Like I said, Roto Grinders is a good way to kind of see who's priced what, get a bigger glance of lineups, who's playing in net. Daily Face Off, great Twitter account that literally gives you as all like as up to date updates as you can on injuries, changes. Sometimes things in hockey happen like they do in basketball, where it's like, oh, so and so is healthy, or he's not going to play tonight, but we thought he would 10 minutes before the game.
Yeah.
I love Hockey Reference. Always great to kind of take a deeper look at certain players, like their production per minute. Right, is a big thing because you might say, "Oh, this guy, his first 2 years in the league, he hadn't scratched 10 goals," but that's because he was only averaging 9 minutes and the team was easing him along, and now he's a legit top six role where he's getting more minutes, but he's also playing with more skilled players, right? A lot of teams, their third and fourth lines are really defensively oriented. If you're It's no different. Like if you're in basketball, if you're playing with like scrappy guys, your point production is going to be affected, right? Versus if you're playing with offensive producers that can, like James Harden or LeBron. So that the same thing applies for hockey. If you're not familiar with names, it's easy to just look at their average or say, oh, this person's price, whatever. Look at it, Hockey Reference, Pro Hockey Reference, look them up, get an idea of where they're at in their career. Are they young? Are they ascending? Have they been, in the league for 2-3 years? And because that's what the biggest thing we see in hockey is guys that very select few come in and just take, those like top 5 picks can take the league by storm. Generational talents definitely do, but a lot of times it takes certain guys a few years, 2-3 years to get the right opportunity, right? Where they're a regular part of the team. It's like with baseball, with minor leagues, right? Like when you get someone who gets that day-to-day role batting cleanup versus they get called up, for like a week and then they get sent back down.
Absolutely, yeah. And it looks like we got a question here in the Twitch chat actually from Neffers128. He said, on DraftKings, you think Anaheim's goalie is going to be a good play?
John Gibson, he's a beast, first of all,
Yeah.
right? And he's been on a little drought. Like, it's not his fault totally, but I think he hasn't won a game since December 17th, which is a long time. But
Yeah.
I mean, Anaheim doesn't help his cause, but it's a solid play. I mean, his price, like you're paying premier price, but when you're such a heavy home favorite against a banged up Ottawa team like this, very much in play, I think, in not only cash game lineups, but even higher risk contests.
Yeah.
Could record a shutout, or it could be a 2-1 game, and then if you don't have them, like your lineup.
Yeah, and that kind of leads into the other point we had on Twitter. A person said, generally speaking, when are goalies in play? Like, do you go for these big home favorites, or if it's a low total? I would think probably maybe a low total, maybe a low opposing team total. Do you have any elaboration on it?
And it really comes down to the contest you're playing, right? So in a situation like this, like John Gibson, cash games, green light, goalies tend to be more expensive. But then on the other side of the token, I mean, how much is Anders Nilsson?
How you spell his name?
Nilsson. I think he's like 60.
6,200.
Right. So, I mean, if you're playing and you touch him in cash games, right? But if you're playing a higher risk contest, it's an interesting pivot play. Not a lot of people will have.
Yeah, I would assume his ownership would be super low. Is basically a
Right.
plus 200 underdog on only.
Sharp people and sharp folks will be on him in higher risk contests, so he won't be like that bad. But I mean, at the end of the day, like the Ducks aren't a great team. They're 30th in the league in goals per game, right? Their power play is tied for 27th. Like it's terrible.
That's
And
awful.
it's just crazy because like they're heavy home. So, like
Yeah.
what is, right? It just shows how bad Ottawa's defense is. And
Hmm.
without Duchesne in the lineup, it's like even a bigger step back. But yeah, in a higher risk contest, he's totally in play. I mean, like, let's pretend like this lineup is for a higher risk contest. Plug him in
Okay.
just to kind of see how it changes the average from 80-300.
Goes up to 87.60.
It's a big boost, right? Now you
Yeah.
have $400 more to spend per player. Don't do that in cash game lineups. Not a good idea. But Gibson is very well much in play. I think
Perfect.
he'll see
Yes.
a lot of shots. He will be popular, and even if he allows like 3 goals, but they win. I mean, a win is 4 points. He gets 0.4 for every save he has. So it's a good way to kind of rack up points compared to. I mean, it's tough. Like it's just the numbers, the way the DraftKings scoring works, like a win is worth 4 points, but a goal is worth 8. So, like, do the math. Like, if Gibson gets lit up and the score is 5-4, right? We're
Hmm.
like, and even if he wins, like, he's not going to be someone you want, right?
Exactly. Yeah. That's just gonna push you down. Yeah.
So it comes down to where did you see this game being a high scoring game? For me, like my gut, like it's like it's so weird because it's like literally the anemic offense meets the defense that can't stop a nosebleed, right? And like, so what gives in that situation? Like, I'm trying to
Absolutely.
think.
Do you
I feel
think
like
we
it
do you think we go with any of the defensemen that we went with in our FanDuel lineup?
Good question. So let's look at prices, right? Um, you can save now. Once again, DraftKings is very sharp, right? If you look at their prices, like I mean, you have guys for 3K on FanDuel. You have I'm sorry, on DraftKings, 3,500, 4,500 guys that are like a perfect example would be, let's see, Cam Fowler. He's 9.8K, right? On
Wow.
DraftKings. Compare him to what he ended. Once again, FanDuel slow to the gun here. DraftKings has adjusted. They know he's back. They know he's
Hmm.
going to be on the top power play unit against this team. Yeah, sorry, not Manson. Cam Fowler. Did I say Manson?
I was looking at
Okay,
let's
but
see.
yeah, no. So yeah, Manson.
Yeah, so
I
he's
mean,
9,800 on DraftKings compared to what was he 7,500 on FanDuel.
mm-hmm.
That's
It's like,
yeah, that's a
and
lot.
when you compare it, I mean, it sounds like a lot. It's even more when you compare it to like the average price, right? It's like one is like a bargain, and the other one it's like,
1,800 over what we have.
mm-hmm.
But
So
looking at Manson, I mean he looks pretty cheap at
yeah,
4,900. Um, you think we plug him in, see what our lineup can do then?
I'm okay with it. I mean, for a cash game, like I mean, this is someone that like he shoots the puck, right? Like
Yeah,
he's not like someone who's anemic to it. Like he could very well have 0 shots on net tonight, right? Just as we say it. But chances are he's going to get 23 minutes of ice time and maybe 2 or 3 shots on goal. But what he saves you is it's a fair play, man.
yeah, definitely. And I'm taking a look here also. Your boy Mark Stone that we talked about. Um, he's actually only 10.5 compared to what was he on FanDuel
13,
13?
right? So, yeah, so he's 10-5, which isn't even the most. Once again, DraftKings adjusted, right? Getzlaff and Raquel are both more expensive than him.
Sharp as shit.
Yeah, and they do it every day. So props to their product team or whoever's like in. They understand kind of the value and the boost there. So now one guy we haven't talked about, and I don't want to forget him and neglect him, Colin White, who is pretty much going to get a bump in his usage tonight with Deshane out. I mean, really, if you let's look at all three centers for Ottawa because they're cheap as hell on the main slate. I'm curious.
Mm-hmm.
So Colin White, right? He's kind of adjusted there still. Would save money. Let's check out Chris Tierney.
He's 71.
Okay, and then let's Jean Gabriel Pagot.
That's a great name.
Yeah, amazing name.
Only 5,500. Wow. I'm taking
so the
a
way
look
Ottawa rolls these lines, they kind of, all three lines are probably going to see close to. I'd say the third line for them is going to play more than the second line, but you're gonna have there's Ottawa can score in different ways. That's for sure across the top three lines. So in a high risk contest, let's see where the model ranks them. The bottom three are all Ottawa, right?
Yeah.
But if you compare, and this is a big part of this, and something we know about the model is it puts a lot of weight into kind of the Vegas projections, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when you have a huge favorite, it just impacts it. I don't think Ryan Kessler and Adam Henrique are head and shoulders above any of these Ottawa Senators centers by any means, right?
Yeah.
Who gets hands down the best one, but.
So taking a look at that with Colin White at only 6,400, we get some first line exposure, some first line power play.
Yeah.
And we're below that average per player. Do you think that makes him a good spot to play him?
Solid, absolutely. I think that let's see how it looks after that.
So we put him in, and we're up to 9,500.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's pretty sick.
Right, and even then, it's DraftKings, and that's just what DraftKings is tough, man. They got Andre Koch at 10.8. They know the opposition ranks. They know that everyone they're gonna make it hard for you to roster these guys. So you absolutely need to find value. So, but yeah, then you can get. You have some flexibility. If we didn't do this, imagine and let's take out Gibson just for a second, right?
Yeah.
Because he's hurting our price for sure.
So then we're at 96.75.
Mm-hmm. So for what it's worth, like I said, Gibson is in play. If it's a 1 or 2 goal game, he's going to make you look good, but you don't have to play him. I don't do, right?
You don't think so? Even though that big of a favorite, I'm just going for someone who I'm just gonna be honest, don't know shit about NHL. I'm just looking at lines. Thinking of it like an MLB game or something. You see a minus 230 favorite, that's you very rarely see that in NHL.
So sharp, man. They're so sharp that they've even adjusted their scoring, right?
Mm-hmm.
So wins, a goaltender win is half as much as a goal.
Okay.
Right. So on the other end, it's I'm not the odds of, the odds of Gibson getting a win is higher than predicting where someone else is going to score. But the event that, let's say, Gibson allows 2 goals,
then you're so shot because the wins aren't and all that. The goals are worth so much more than a win in a single game, right?
And to sum it up, DraftKings, their prices are so sharp, man, that you got to find a littlest edge. There's a reason everyone is priced the way they are.
Yeah.
And Gibson, and that's why I'm kind of it's way tougher for me because I'm looking at it and I'm I see why he's that expensive.
Mm-hmm.
If the Ducks win 2-1 or 3-1 or even 4-2, you're going to be hard pressed winning games without him, or winning contests without him in your line. But the other side of the token, it's like, he's like that perfect price, man. Like they have it nailed down.
Yeah, so I don't know, man. Maybe it's just me being whack, but
no, play it. Go ahead.
Yeah.
I think it's fair. I'm not
especially in cash. Like I'm just.
Yeah, let's go.
It's kind of like I was doing my own little research and I kind of had my eyes set on this guy. I was like, I want to kind of build a lineup around him.
This guy that hasn't won he's a good goalie, top 10 goalie for sure in the NHL. Just cursed with a bad team, and I mean, he hasn't won a game since December 17th. That's probably going to change tonight. So I like it. I'm cool with news. But then let's scroll down. Who are we going to get to kind of give us an opportunity to pay for either like Getzlaf or Raquel?
Let's see.
Let's see out my sheet here. But Silverberg, solid play.
Yeah, I was looking at him in the model while we were just talking. Let's take a look at what his price is. So he's 8,200. You think he's a good play?
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, he has the goal scoring upside, right? He's going to shoot the puck not as often as like Raquel or even Getzlaf, but he'll have opportunities. But Jean-Gabriel Paquet, and I hope I'm pronouncing his name right. I've heard it a few times, but he's someone like, okay, so he came back. He had his actually first game of the season, like the other night against the Hurricanes, and 13 minutes, scored a goal, 3 shots on net. He's coming back from a torn Achilles tendon, so great way to come back, right? Score on your first back, but look how cheap he is, man.
Yeah, 55. That's wild.
It's like,
and I know the model has him ranked pretty shitty, but that's for the whole. That's for the main slate. Like it's not incorporating the single game stuff.
And then on top of that, the model. I mean, we love the model, but we also know the blind spots of the model, right?
Of course, absolutely.
I mean, this is someone that missed he tore his Achilles, right?
Yeah.
Or I don't think he tore it actually. No, he did. That's crazy how quickly he recovered. I want to see when he tore it, but because it didn't. I think it happened at the end of last season. But yeah, I mean, he's someone at that price just opens up your options, right? And this is why even 2 guys on, or actually only 1 guy on.
Ottawa.
Let's take out Colin White and put him in instead.
Okay, so we put him in. We're up to 10-6. We can put in, just keeping with the average player and the little amount that I know. Maybe we put in someone like Mark Stone, just because you mentioned him earlier. I know he had a little bit higher OF index in the model. Do you want to try and put him in, see what we can do?
Yeah, no, that's fair game.
So we have him in there.
Yeah.
Then we're worth 10-7. Knock out these DL guys. We got Fowler, who's up there.
Kosh, Raquel, we're looking at 10-7. All those guys have that, or just outside of it, actually. Honestly, me personally, that's why it's just tough with Gibson, right? That's what it keeps coming down to. And it's like, for me, I'm like, okay, if this is a cash game lineup, I'm okay with it. But for a high risk contest, I definitely at this point want to benefit from some correlation, because frankly, it's one way to save money while still keeping upside. Like with Pagot, for instance, he's on the same line as either both Zingle and Ryan, scoring upside, and I mean, those guys, Ryan is 6.7K, right? True bargain. Like that is a massive bargain play.
So you want to put him in, see how we can kind of go around with that.
Yeah, and let's take out Gibson just for. And I know you're not going to do it, but let's just give it. And once again, we're kind of.
But the more I think about it, and I was looking at the DraftKings scoring again, just trying to get some output. I mean, it almost seems like maybe a goalie isn't really worth it in single game.
It's tough, right? Especially, I mean, it really stems from my lack of confidence right now in Anaheim,
Okay.
flat out. If Ottawa, for what it's for, as much as we've been kind of dogging him, like the reality is they can score. Like they have guys like that can score. So I'm not worried about it's very rare that the Ducks are playing in a game where there's a 6-goal over under. Here we are tonight. Ottawa, they can score, man. Like they're eighth in their division. They suck. They're not going to the playoffs. They've lost, I think, like 10 straight games.
Jesus, God, so bad.
But they're 10th in the league in scoring. Like they're 31st in goals against, 31st in penalty kill, 10th in scoring, 11th on the power play. So
yeah. So then I'm looking here, maybe with like because now we have 14,000 remaining. If we put in someone like even at the top, if we put in Getzlav.
Yeah, now we can go backwards, right? Now we can say, let's take out Silverberg and maybe
we take out Silverberg, then we have room for literally anybody on the slate that we want. We can put in Raquel.
Right.
That's the greatest way to spell Andre, I guess. Andre Case.
Kasi. Kosh. So and once again, we're going back from cash game to higher risk contest. The big takeaway here: cash game, spread them out. Don't invest too much in one stack. You want to make sure for your cash games, every single player you're rostering is getting at least 13, 15 minutes. Like if they're a forward and they're getting under,
it's almost a real challenge to roster someone like that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Find that value with the defense. And then for higher risk, you go either way. You can go more correlation heavy, or you can still take that same approach.
Yeah. So I'm looking at our model here, and we have Kosh is actually the highest ranked winger. And he's actually projected pretty highly on DraftKings. Do you want to? Then we can fit him in as the last spot.
I'm a big fan of him, right? Like he's phenomenal. Like this kid has erupted. He's had, I think, especially since he's been elevated into this role. He's had a 2-goal game, 3-goal game. He's had multi-point games. Last game he had shots on net. I'm a little worried about what Raquel's return is going to do to his role, and combined with Fowler, I still expect him to be on the top. I don't know. I don't know who's going to be the top unit power play, but I think Kosh, he's a guy that there's a reason DraftKings has him that high.
Mm-hmm.
He could very well be the only player that scores 2 goals today.
Definitely, but looking into this, and we actually just got a question on Twitch. Nefers again, he says, do we care about ownership? Do we look at ownership? Short answer is yes, absolutely, especially for cash. And then he followed it up with based off what our motto is, but our motto ownership is for the main slate. I don't think you can really compare it for the single game. I think more importantly would just be like who's playing the lines, and more importantly, I think who is expensive. People are going to go towards those expensive guys, right? Would you agree to that?
Right. I think on some capacity, it's tough. And this is a new thing, like these single game slates. We're still getting data on it, and I'm looking back, and sometimes we think, oh, this person's going to be super expensive, but the difficulty of incorporating them in the lineup turns people off. Then all of a sudden, that most popular guy turns out to not be as high on. But for the most part, yeah. Let's say the Caps are playing, Ovi's going to be the highest owned player. He's going to be pretty much every lineup, and people are going to be more willing to punt 2 positions to avoid or to actually be able to pay up for him. So for higher risk contests, I think to kind of answer that, fading guys that we know are going to be high is an effective strategy for sure because 90% of the lineups aren't going to do that.
Yeah, definitely.
And then it gives you more money to, sprinkle in other guys.
Absolutely, yeah, because not many people are doing the same type of analysis as you or what the model does, and finding these $4,900, $5,500 players. But most people are just going to say, "Fuck it,
We'll have
punt
to do
it."
another one of these very soon because, like I said, I don't think tonight's single game slate is super appealing. It's just like and I say this because of FanDuel. I just think like it's a little tougher than I like as far as like creating lineups that you like. And it's not always the case, right? Like there are going to be nights where there's like 2, 3 guys that are 75, 8,000, 8,500 that you can feel good about putting in your line.
Yeah, and I think a bigger question is, or a bigger thing is that you don't actually have to force yourself. Like we're making lineups, we're able to tell a good story. But there's same games like this. Like if you based off what your research and what your lineups are looking like, if you don't feel comfortable, if you don't think it's gonna do well, you don't have to play it.
No, I agree. And like the lineup, you have here is more than solid for cash.
Yeah.
I mean, let's go. Can you scroll down a little to like that 6,000, 5,500 mark?
Here.
Just want to see who's around that area before we wrap it up here. And yeah, give us any feedback, guys. Like it's the first time we're doing it. We're trying to make sure we're giving you guys good content.
Absolutely, yeah. Because it's like you said, this slate's a little iffy. Maybe next time when we find a slate, we'll be like, oh, good slate. Okay, yeah, we'll push it out. Let's do this.
I like this as a cash game lineup. So
perfect. So I'm gonna go ahead and input this. Boom. Let's get this 50-50 going.
Let's see. Good luck, man. And if you don't win, you won't hear from me.
Perfect. So we went a little bit over time, but it's perfect. I had a lot of fun. Any lingering advice or any sayings or anything you want to go before we head out?
No, just keep learning. I mean, like I know everyone's caught up in winning the big prize, and like we just had someone on our show that won 50 grand, and I've close to that sort of price. Neither, like we've been GPPs and like competed, won 2 grand there. Brian's won a couple grand. It's like if you're so caught up in like just chasing that figure, like it's gonna like suck the life out of you. Don't let it control your life. Like have fun playing, enjoy the process of learning and trying to get an advantage and trying to think differently and testing like game theory and like
absolutely
don't get too caught up in like you want to be profitable and you want to make sure you're not bleeding money, but if you're building your bankroll, if you start with 100 and in like 3 months you have $200, but you're able to get some satellite tickets, which are big target satellites for sure, and then keep learning.
Definitely.
Single slate thing is new. The single slate thing is very new, and maybe in 2-3 years it's going to be like one of the biggest ways to like people bet on sports. Who knows?
Yeah, definitely, absolutely. Big Steve just PSU just said is really helpful. Has really helped him. He knows nothing about hockey, and he said he definitely learned some things. So shout out to Big Steve for that.
A guy, yeah, appreciate that, Big Steve.
But yeah, just to piggyback on your before we head out, chasing those GPPs, and I know some people are more high risk. I've always been on record saying I'm lower risk. I love just waking up and just knowing that I just smashed some head-to-heads and some 50-50s. Knowing I'm slowly growing my bankroll. I'm getting some satellite tickets on the side as well. So again, goals, we preach that in the Ultimate Guide. Check it out on the website.
Yeah,
so pretty solid.
For sure, like it's an art to build a cash game lineup versus like a high risk and enjoy like learning. Hey, look, like this lineup. Here's why it makes sense for cash versus here's why it makes sense for high risk. And you might find the cash game lineup stinks, and you're like, oh wait, this lineup would have been better in a high risk contest. But like, don't just let the results change your thought process, right? Like really dig into it. Sometimes the results are fluke. Like sometimes like people with like we saw week 1 in football, someone, won $1 million with the Ryan Fitzpatrick as their quarterback. And it's like
Ridiculous.
doesn't mean that, they're super sharp, but hey, like their process was legit that week. So yeah, no, definitely be open minded, assess, review, and have fun.
Absolutely. And I just got the notification that the battery is low on my computer, so I'm gonna use that as my signs. We gotta hurry up and get up out of here.
All right, guys.
Walid, man, always glad to have you on. Can't wait to do it next time, brother.
Oh yeah, take it easy. We'll talk soon.
Peace.